The story of Rome and Italy historical journey. Sweeping aerial shots, the Colosseum at dawn, Renaissance Florence, Venice's canals, Alpine peaks, Mediterranean coastline, modern Milan, Roman Forum ruins, Vatican Dome. Italy, a boot-shaped peninsula jutting into the Mediterranean Sea, where Western civilization was forged and reborn. Here, a small city on the Tiber River became an empire that ruled the known world. Here, after that empire's fall, city-states birthed the Renaissance and changed human culture forever. Here, art, law, architecture, and governance were revolutionized multiple times. This is the story of Rome and Italy, of how a collection of tribes became the Roman Empire, how that empire's collapse led to 1,000 years of division, how fragmented city-states became centers of artistic genius, and how, against all odds, Italy unified into a nation barely 160 years ago. To understand Italy today, its regional pride, its cultural treasures, its political complexity, we must understand this extraordinary journey. Our story begins not with Rome, but with the peoples who inhabited this peninsula long before Rome existed. Ancient Italy, from tribes to empire. Segment 1, Early Italy and the Etruscans. Archaeological sites, ancient artifacts, pre-Roman Italy. 3,000 years ago, the Italian peninsula was a patchwork of peoples. In the south, Greek colonists established prosperous cities, Magna Graecia, Greater Greece, bringing Hellenic culture, philosophy, and architecture. The Greeks founded Neapolis, Naples, Syracuse, and Tarentum, creating a Mediterranean trading network. In the north and center, indigenous Italic tribes thrived, Latins, Sabines, Umbrians, and Samnites. But the most sophisticated civilization was the Etruscans. Mysterious and advanced, Etruscan culture. The Etruscans remain enigmatic. Their language, unrelated to Latin or Greek, is only partially understood. They emerged in central Italy around 900 BCE, possibly from Anatolia or as indigenous peoples who absorbed Eastern Mediterranean influences. They built impressive cities with advanced engineering, drainage systems, roads, monumental architecture. Etruscan art was sophisticated and lively. Their tombs reveal a culture that celebrated life. Frescoes show banquets, dancing, music, and athletics. They treated women with relative equality unusual for ancient times. They practiced divination by reading animal entrails, a practice Romans would adopt. The Etruscans dominated central Italy, including the site of a small Latin settlement on 7 hills beside the Tiber River, Rome. Segment 2, The Roman Republic, Rise to Power. Dramatic shift, the birth of Rome. Legend says Rome was founded in 753 BCE by Romulus, descendant of Trojan hero Aeneas, raised by a she-wolf with his twin brother Remus. The truth is more mundane. Rome began as a collection of Latin and Sabine villages that gradually merged. For over 2 centuries, Etruscan kings ruled Rome. Then, in 509 BCE, Romans expelled their last king, the tyrant Tarquin the Proud, and established the Republic, residential publica, the public thing. This would be Rome's defining political system for nearly 500 years. Republican ideals, governance and conquest. The Roman Republic was an oligarchy, not a democracy. Power resided with the Senate, composed of wealthy patricians. But the Republic developed sophisticated institutions, 2 consuls elected annually as chief executives, preventing tyranny, tribunes representing plebeian interests, and complex checks and balances. Romans were obsessed with civic duty, military service, and the mos maiorum, the way of the ancestors. They valued virtus, virtue, manliness, pietas, duty, loyalty, and dignitas, dignity, honor. These values created a militaristic, disciplined society. Montage. Military expansion. Rome expanded relentlessly. Through the 5th and 4th centuries BCE, Rome conquered its Latin neighbors, defeated the Etruscans, and battled the fierce Samnites in the mountains. By 275 BCE, Rome controlled the entire Italian peninsula. Then Rome faced its greatest challenge, Carthage. Epic conflict, the Punic Wars. The Punic Wars, 264 to 146 BCE, against the Carthaginian Empire were existential struggles. In the Second Punic War, the Carthaginian general Hannibal crossed the Alps with elephants and devastated Italy for 15 years, inflicting Rome's worst defeats, including Cannae, where 50,000 to 70,000 Romans died in a single day. But Rome never surrendered. Roman resilience, the refusal to accept defeat, ultimately prevailed. Scipio Africanus carried the war to Africa and defeated Hannibal at Zama in 202 BCE. Carthage was destroyed in 146 BCE, its soil reportedly sowed with salt. Victory over Carthage made Rome the Mediterranean's dominant power. Roman legions conquered Greece, Asia Minor, Syria, and Gaul. By the 1st century BCE, Rome controlled an empire, but the Republic was dying. Segment 3, Empire, Augustus to fall. Transition to imperial grandeur. The Republic couldn't govern an empire. Generals with loyal armies became more powerful than the Senate. Civil wars erupted. Julius Caesar, having conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BCE, triggering civil war. He emerged victorious but was assassinated in 44 BCE by senators fearing tyranny. More civil wars followed until Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra. In 27 BCE, Octavian took the title Augustus and became Rome's first emperor, cleverly maintaining republican forms while holding absolute power. Pax Romana, the Golden Age. The next 2 centuries, the Pax Romana, represented Rome's zenith. From Britain to Mesopotamia, from the Rhine to the Sahara, Roman law, roads, aqueducts, and cities unified diverse peoples. Latin became the empire's language. Roman engineering built structures still standing today, the Pantheon, the Colosseum, aqueducts, roads. Roman culture absorbed and transmitted Greek civilization. Virgil wrote the Aeneid, Rome's national epic. Ovid, Horace, and Livy created literature that would shape Western culture. Roman law, codified, rational, systematic, became the foundation of European legal systems. But within this glory lay seeds of decline. Dark clouds, crisis, and Christianity. In the 3rd century CE, the empire faced crisis, barbarian invasions, economic chaos, civil wars, plague. The empire nearly collapsed. Emperor Diocletian stabilized it by dividing administration between East and West and instituting authoritarian reforms. Constantine the Great, 306 to 337 CE, made 2 fateful decisions. He legalized Christianity, transforming a persecuted sect into an imperial religion. And he moved the capital from Rome to Constantinople, modern Istanbul, shifting the empire's center eastward. Christianity spread rapidly, fundamentally changing Roman culture. Pagan temples closed. Christian bishops gained power. The Church developed hierarchical organization mirroring imperial administration. The fall, slow collapse. In the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire crumbled. Germanic tribes, Visigoths, Vandals, Ostrogoths, overwhelmed defenses. In 410 CE, Visigoths sacked Rome for the first time in 800 years. In 476 CE, the last Western emperor was deposed by a Germanic chieftain. The Roman Empire in the West had fallen. The Dark Ages had begun. Yet Rome's legacy endured, in language, law, architecture, Christianity, and the dream of universal empire that would haunt Europe for a millennium. Medieval Italy, Division and Rebirth. Segment 1. Barbarians, Byzantines, and the Papal States. Chaos and Transformation. Post-Roman Italy. After Rome's fall, Italy became a battleground. Ostrogoths established a kingdom. Then the Byzantine Emperor Justinian reconquered Italy in the 6th century, devastating the peninsula with decades of warfare. Byzantine rule was harsh and distant. In 568, the Lombards, a Germanic tribe, invaded, establishing a kingdom in northern Italy. Italy was now fractured between Lombard territories in the north and center, and Byzantine holdings in the south and around Rome. The rise of the papacy. Into this vacuum stepped the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. As civil authority collapsed, the Church provided stability. Popes claimed spiritual authority over all Christians and increasingly temporal power over Rome and surrounding territories. Pope Gregory the Great, 590–604, effectively governed Rome, organizing defense, distributing food, and negotiating with Lombards. He sent missionaries to convert Germanic peoples, spreading Christianity and papal influence. In 754, threatened by Lombards, Pope Stephen II made a fateful alliance with the Frankish king Pepin the Short. The Franks invaded Italy and gave conquered Lombard territories to the Pope, creating the Papal States, a sovereign territory ruled by the Pope that would exist for over 1,000 years. Charlemagne, the imperial dream revived. In 800 CE, Pope Leo III crowned Pepin's son Charlemagne as Emperor of the Romans. The Roman Empire was restored, though this Holy Roman Empire was neither holy, nor Roman, nor really an empire. But it established a pattern, German kings claiming Roman imperial authority, with popes crowning emperors, creating complex power struggles between church and state. Segment 2. The medieval communes, city-states emerge. Economic revival, cities reborn. From the 11th century onward, Italy experienced economic revival. Trade with the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world enriched Italian port cities. The Crusades, beginning in 1096, created opportunities for Italian merchants. Venice, Genoa, and Pisa became maritime powers, controlling Mediterranean trade routes. Their fleets transported crusaders, traded with Muslims, and grew fabulously wealthy. Venice developed a sophisticated republican government and built a maritime empire. In northern and central Italy, cities increasingly asserted independence from feudal lords and the Holy Roman Emperor. They formed communes, self-governing city-states ruled by wealthy merchants and guilds. Cultural flowering, medieval achievement. These city-states became centers of innovation. Banking developed. The Medici family of Florence would become Europe's most powerful bankers. Universities were founded, Bologna, Padua, Naples, preserving and expanding knowledge. Italian cities pioneered new forms of governance, finance, and commerce. They were dynamic, competitive, and often violent. Internal factions fought for control, and cities warred with each other constantly. But this competition bred excellence. Artists, intellectuals, and craftsmen found patronage in wealthy cities. Architecture evolved. Romanesque churches gave way to Gothic cathedrals. Italian vernacular literature emerged with Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio writing in Italian rather than Latin. Segment 3. The Renaissance, Italy's greatest gift. Transformation, the rebirth of classical culture. In the 14th and 15th centuries, centered in Florence but spreading across Italy, the Renaissance rebirth revolutionized European culture. Wealthy Italian merchants and bankers became patrons of arts and learning. The Medici family effectively ruled Florence while sponsoring artists, philosophers, and scholars. They collected ancient manuscripts, founded libraries and academies, and commissioned artworks that still define beauty. Artistic genius, the masters. Renaissance artists achieved unprecedented realism and emotional depth. Giotto pioneered naturalistic painting. Brunelleschi designed Florence's magnificent dome and rediscovered linear perspective. Donatello revolutionized sculpture. Then came the Titans, Leonardo da Vinci, universal genius who painted the Mona Lisa and Last Supper while designing flying machines and studying anatomy. Michelangelo, who carved the David and painted the Sistine Chapel ceiling, achieving sublime beauty in marble and fresco. Raphael, whose harmonious compositions perfected high Renaissance ideals. Intellectual revolution, humanism. Renaissance humanism returned to classical Greek and Roman texts, emphasizing human potential, civic virtue, and this-worldly concerns rather than medieval otherworldliness. Machiavelli wrote The Prince, a coldly realistic analysis of political power that shocked and influenced generations. The Renaissance spread from Italy across Europe, transforming art, literature, science, and thought. It marks the transition from medieval to modern Europe, and Italy was its cradle. But Italy's political reality was less glorious. Divided into competing city-states and kingdoms, Italy became a battlefield for foreign powers. France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire fought for control. In 1527, imperial troops sacked Rome, effectively ending the High Renaissance. Act 3. Early Modern Italy, Foreign Domination. Segment 1. Spanish and Austrian Rule. Decline, loss of independence. By the mid-16th century, much of Italy fell under foreign control. Spain dominated southern Italy and Milan. The Papal States remained independent but weakened. Only Venice, Genoa, and a few small states maintained autonomy. Foreign domination brought economic decline. Trade routes shifted to the Atlantic after the discovery of the Americas, reducing Italian commercial importance. Spanish rule in the south imposed heavy taxation and feudal structures that stunted development. Baroque splendor, cultural continuation. Yet Italian culture continued flourishing. The Baroque era brought dramatic, emotional art and architecture, Caravaggio's revolutionary use of light and shadow, Bernini's sculptural genius, magnificent churches like St. Peter's Basilica completed in Rome. Italian opera emerged as a new art form. Monteverdi, then later Vivaldi, Scarlatti, and others created works that defined the genre. The Baroque period saw the completion of St. Peter's Square and the Spanish Steps in Rome, and palaces across Italy. Science flourished too. Galileo Galilei revolutionized astronomy and physics, though the Church forced him to recant his support for Copernican heliocentrism. The conflict between Galileo and the Inquisition symbolized the tension between new scientific inquiry and traditional religious authority. Napoleon and national awakening. Revolutionary upheaval. French invasion. In 1796, a young French general named Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Italy. His armies swept aside the old order, abolishing feudal privileges and introducing revolutionary ideals: equality before the law, meritocracy, rational administration. Napoleon reorganized Italy, creating republics and eventually the Kingdom of Italy with himself as king. He looted Italian art treasures for Paris but also introduced modern governance, legal codes, and the promise of liberty. Seeds of nationalism. For the first time in centuries, Italians glimpsed unity and self-governance. Napoleon's defeat in 1815 brought bitter disappointment. The Congress of Vienna restored the old order, Austrian control in the north, Spanish Bourbons in the south, the Pope in central Italy. But the idea of Italian nationalism had been planted. The Risorgimento, resurgence, movement began. Secret societies like the Carbonari plotted revolution. Intellectuals like Giuseppe Mazzini called for Italian unification and republican government. Revolutions of 1848. In 1848, revolutions erupted across Europe, including Italy. Uprisings challenged Austrian rule in Milan and Venice, papal authority in Rome, and Bourbon rule in Sicily. These revolutions ultimately failed, crushed by Austrian military power. But they proved that Italians wanted unity and independence. The question was how to achieve it. Act 4, Modern Italy, Unification TOPRESENT the Risorgimento, Forging a Nation. National Awakening, the drive for unity. Italian unification required military force and diplomatic cunning. It found both in the Kingdom of Piedmont-Sardinia under King Victor Emmanuel II and his Prime Minister, Count Camillo di Cavour. Cavour was a political genius. He modernized Piedmont, building railroads and industry. He allied with France, contributing Piedmontese troops to the Crimean War to gain a seat at European diplomatic tables. In 1859, with French help, Piedmont defeated Austria and annexed Lombardy. Garibaldi's Thousand, romantic nationalism. Then Giuseppe Garibaldi, a charismatic revolutionary and brilliant guerrilla fighter, took the stage. In May 1860, with just 1,000 red-shirted volunteers, Garibaldi invaded Sicily, defeated the Bourbon army, crossed to the mainland, and conquered the kingdom of the Two Sicilies. In one of history's most dramatic gestures, Garibaldi presented his conquests to Victor Emmanuel II, enabling monarchical unification rather than his preferred republic. On March 17, 1861, the Kingdom of Italy was proclaimed with Victor Emmanuel as king. Completion, Rome and Venetia. But Italy wasn't complete. Venice remained Austrian until 1866, when Italy allied with Prussia in a war against Austria. Rome, protected by French troops, remained papal territory until 1870, when France withdrew troops during the Franco-Prussian War. Italian forces entered Rome, and it became Italy's capital. The Pope retreated to the Vatican, refusing to recognize the Italian state, a standoff lasting until the Late-Ran Treaty of 1929. From World Wars to Republic. Troubled nation. Early challenges. The new Italy faced enormous challenges. The north was industrializing, the south remained feudal and impoverished. Different regions spoke different dialects. "We have made Italy," said politician Massimo D'Azeglio, "now we must make Italians." Italy joined World War I on the Allied side in 1915, hoping to gain territory from Austria. The war was disastrous. 600,000 Italians died in brutal mountain warfare. Victory brought some territorial gains but massive debt and social upheaval. Fascism, the dark years. Post-war chaos enabled Benito Mussolini's rise. A former socialist turned nationalist, Mussolini formed the Fascist Party, promising order, national glory, and action. In 1922, his march on Rome intimidated King Victor Emmanuel III into appointing him prime minister. Mussolini established a totalitarian dictatorship. He suppressed opposition, controlled media, and promoted aggressive nationalism. He invaded Ethiopia in 1935 and allied with Nazi Germany. Illinois Jews promised to restore Roman imperial glory. World War II. Catastrophe. Italy entered World War II in 1940, unprepared and poorly equipped. Italian armies suffered defeats in North Africa, Greece, and Russia. Allied forces invaded Sicily in 1943. The fascist Grand Council deposed Mussolini, and Italy switched sides. Germany occupied northern Italy. Mussolini was rescued by Germans and established a puppet state. For 2 years, Italy became a battlefield. Partisans fought Germans and Italian fascists in a brutal civil war. Mussolini was captured and executed by partisans in April 1945. Rebirth as Republic. In 1946, Italians voted in a referendum to abolish the monarchy and establish a republic. Italy drafted a democratic constitution, implemented in 1948. Italy chose democracy, rejecting both monarchy and fascism. Modern Italy, prosperity and problems. Economic miracle. Post-war recovery. Post-war, Italy experienced an economic miracle. With American aid through the Marshall Plan, Italy rebuilt and industrialized rapidly. By the 1960s, Italy was a major industrial power. Fiat, Olivetti, and fashion houses became global brands. Italian design, cars, furniture, fashion, became synonymous with style. Italy was a founding member of the European Economic Community, now the EU, committing to European integration. Italian culture spread globally, cinema with Fellini and Antonioni, literature with Calvino and Eco, design and fashion with Armani and Versace. Persistent challenges. But Italy faced continuing problems. Political instability plagued the Republic, over 60 governments since 1946. The Christian Democrats dominated for decades, with communists as permanent opposition, creating a frozen political system. The North-South divide persisted. Northern Italy industrialized and prospered. Southern Italy remained poorer, with organized crime, the mafia, Camorra, and 'Ndrangheta wielding significant power. The years of lead, 1970s-80s, brought terrorism from both far-left and far-right groups. In the 1990s, corruption scandals destroyed the old party system in the clean hands investigations. Contemporary Italy. Modern Italy is the EU's third-largest economy, a G7 member, and a major cultural force. Yet it struggles with low economic growth, high public debt, political populism, and challenges integrating into a globalized economy. Recent governments have oscillated between center-left, center-right, and populist coalitions. Italy faces questions about its future, within the EU, managing migration, reforming sclerotic institutions, and addressing regional inequalities. Act 5, Legacy. How history shaped Italy today. Reflective synthesis. Understanding modern Italy. To understand Italy today requires understanding its unique history. An ancient empire that fell, a medieval patchwork that flourished, a Renaissance cradle that was conquered, and a late unified nation still finding its identity. Regional identity. From centuries of division comes Italy's powerful regionalism. An Italian is Venetian, Roman, Neapolitan, or Milanese before being Italian. Each region has distinct dialects, cuisines, traditions, and identities. This enriches Italian culture but complicates national governance. The North-South divide has ancient roots. Northern Italy, urbanized and commercial since medieval times, is wealthier and more European. Southern Italy, dominated by foreign rulers for centuries, remains relatively poorer with different social structures. This divide fuels political tensions, with northern separatist movements occasionally demanding autonomy. Cultural legacy. From Rome comes Italy's legal tradition, architectural ambition, and the notion of a universal civilization transcending local loyalties. Italian identity is partly constructed around this Roman heritage. The glory that was Rome shapes how Italians see themselves and how the world sees Italy. From the medieval communes and Renaissance city-states comes Italy's decentralized governance, strong local administration, and tradition of civic culture at the municipal level. Italian cities remain remarkably distinct and proud of their individual identities. From the Renaissance comes Italy's unparalleled artistic and cultural heritage. Italy has more UNESCO World Heritage Sites than any other country. This heritage is both blessing and burden. Preserving it while building modern infrastructure requires constant negotiation. Catholic influence. The Catholic Church's presence shapes Italy profoundly. The Vatican sits in Rome's heart, a sovereign state within Italy's capital. Catholic social teaching influences politics, education, and culture. Yet Italians maintain a complex relationship with the Church, deeply Catholic culturally but increasingly secular in practice. Political fragmentation. From late unification comes Italy's weak national identity compared to France or Britain. Italians unified late and somewhat artificially, under a Piedmontese monarchy that conquered more than united. This creates ambivalence about national institutions. Italy's democratic system, proportional representation creating many parties, frequent government changes, powerful regions, reflects this fragmented history. It ensures representation but complicates governance. Economic creativity. From centuries of commercial innovation comes Italy's economic creativity. Small and medium enterprises dominate Italian economy, family businesses producing everything from fashion to machinery with high quality and design. Italian craftsmanship, style, and culinary excellence are global brands. Yet this economic structure struggles with globalization. Small firms find competing with massive multinationals difficult. Innovation often occurs in traditional sectors rather than high technology. Closing. Montage. Contemporary Italy, ancient ruins and modern life coexisting. Walk through Rome today and you'll see layers of history compressed into single views. Ancient Roman temples converted to churches with Baroque facades. Medieval towers among Renaissance palaces. Modern traffic circling imperial monuments. This is Italy. Millennia of history constantly present. Italy's contribution to Western civilization is incalculable. Roman law still underlies European legal systems. Latin languages, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian, descend from Rome. The Roman alphabet is used globally. Roman architecture influenced building for 2,000 years. Cultural treasures. The Renaissance remade human culture. Without Italian artists, architects, and thinkers, the modern world would be unimaginably different. Italian opera, literature, cinema, design, and cuisine have enriched human experience. Italian city-states pioneered banking, commerce, and republican governance. Italian universities, Bologna is the world's oldest, created models of higher education. Italian explorers, Columbus, Vespucci, Cabot, opened new worlds. Contemporary paradox. Yet modern Italy often seems less than the sum of its history. Political dysfunction frustrates. Economic stagnation worries. Emigration of young Italians seeking opportunity elsewhere depletes talent. But writing Italy off would be foolish. Italy has survived and thrived through unimaginable upheavals, empire collapse, barbarian invasions, foreign domination, political fragmentation, world wars, and fascism. Italian resilience, creativity, and capacity for beauty persist. Final reflection. Italy matters not as a great power that ended with Rome, but as a great civilization. It matters because it shows that culture, beauty, and quality of life matter as much as economic or military power. Italy reminds us that history is always present, that regional identity can coexist with national belonging, and that the past enriches rather than imprisons the present. Italy's future remains uncertain. Can it reform institutions while preserving regional character? Can it compete economically while maintaining quality of life? Can it integrate immigrants while retaining identity? Can it contribute to European unity while maintaining Italian distinctiveness? These questions have no easy answers. But Italy has navigated impossible dilemmas before. From Rome's ashes rose medieval communes. From fragmentation came Renaissance genius. From humiliating defeat came democratic rebirth. Closing images, daily Italian life, espresso bars, piazzas filled with people, children playing in ancient courtyards, artists working, families gathering for meals. Italy endures because Italians know something the rest of the world is still learning, that life is not just about progress and power, but about beauty, connection, tradition, and joy. That a perfect espresso, a masterful fresco, a precisely crafted shoe, or a lovingly prepared meal matter as much as GDP growth or military strength. This is Italy's gift to the world, the reminder that civilization is measured not just by what we build, but by how we live. From the 7 hills of Rome to the canals of Venice, from ancient empire to modern republic, Italy remains eternal, constantly changing, forever itself. This is the end of story of how ancient Italy rose from tribes to empire. Subscribe to Timelines of Nations for weekly videos exploring the ancient to modern history of countries around the world.